let's talk a little bit about Polkaswap now. So Polkaswap is, as I already showed how it fits into the whole ecosystem, but I haven't really talked about some of the features other than the token bonding curve. But there's a lot of cool stuff there. Also, it's funded by a grant from Web3 that we got to start development about a year ago. So Polkaswap is a automatic market making constant product DEX similar to Uniswap, with some really cool tokenomics built in related to the SORA ecosystem and bridges to many other platforms. So traditional DEXs, as you may have known, if you've used Uniswap or Sushi or whatever, well, maybe not so much as Sushi because it's pretty cheap, but still transactions fail a lot for me there. They have unpredictable and high gas fees, and they're susceptible to network congestion. So you do have a lot of problems making transactions predictably on Ethereum. Current DEXs also have a lot of liquidity fragmentation. So for example, Uniswap version 2, it kind of emphasizes ease of creating token pairs, but it comes at the expense of liquidity being very fragmented. So you can create any token pairs you want without going through like a hub token, but actually going through like a hub token makes token trade routing much more efficient, and you can get better price quotes. And also you don't have as many problems with having liquidity fragmented in many different token pairs. So that's one of the main issues with the liquidity on DEXs right now. Also, current DEX design really causes a lot of impermanent loss for liquidity providers. And if combine that with high gas fees, and it's really hard to like rebalance the portfolio, and you do get exposed to quite a lot of impermanent loss in current DEX designs. So to create a better DEX in Polkaswap, we've done quite a lot of work on making on fixing these problems. So one, we use a parity substrate as the blockchain basis, and so transactions are much faster and much cheaper. So I mean, I'll show you in a few minutes. Like I'll just show you the product, and you can see how it is. It's very different from Ethereum. And we can even like combine liquidity from multiple exchanges using aggregate liquidity technology. So we're working on developing this, but the idea basically is that you can get price quotes from many different liquidity sources and execute against them. And we've also done a lot of innovation with the tokenomics of SORA and PSwap tokens that I'll go into in a second. A couple more things about the PSwap token. It's a buyback and burn deflationary token. So every transaction fee, the 0.3% swap of each swap on the DEX goes to buy back PSwap tokens and then burn these. And then every day, these tokens are reminted and given to liquidity providers. So, but it's done in such a way that the reward, the percent of the remint of the tokens goes down as a percentage of the burned amount every day. So at day one, it's like 90% because the parliament gets 10% of the remit, but then it goes down to 35% after like 4 years. So what that means is that the token supply will be much more deflationary in the future. One other thing I'll just point out is you see this purple triangle, the strategic bonuses. These are strategic bonuses to incentivize people to do things like I explained already, like buying SORA from the token bonding curve and giving collateral. There's two other ways to earn PSwap as part of a strategic bonus. One is to provide liquidity on the DEX. Like all liquidity providers will get a special bonus for the first 4 years, I think. So there's some above and beyond transaction fees that you get. There's also like PSwap bonuses for providing liquidity. And then finally, for market makers to execute a sufficient number of volume per month, there's trading rebates from a rebate pool. But if you take these rewards and you just dump them on the market, giving them to the people who do these things, the price would just crash because you have unpredictable quantity. And as I already explained, it's the quantity of tokens in an economy that really determines a lot of things because markets are not in equilibrium. So, so what this means is that you don't want to just dump it on the economy. You have to vest it over time. And the only rational way to vest it in a predictable way to maintain the quantity is as a percent of the burn. So that's what this purple triangle is. It's the amount of the daily burn that is reminted as invested for these strategic rewards. It's a little complex, but it's okay. So there's a lot of potential to growth. I love this slide. There's not too much substance, but it's cool. Already talked about some of these things. I think some of the tokenomics are important to kind of dive into a little bit. So what we do is we use ZOR as a liquidity token pair. So when you provide liquidity on the DEX, you always have to do it with a ZOR pair, which I'll show you in the demo. And this is, it's a little bit of controversial opinion or a design decision because ZOR is not like a top 10 crypto yet, so it's a little bit of a niche token, but because it's managed by the token bonding curve, you do get infinite amounts of liquidity if you wanted it, and so it's really not a problem. You can always inject more tokens into the environment as needed. Because it's managed also by token bonding curves, XOR token is more, it has a little bit of, volatility dampening built in. And so this does help reduce impermanent loss in our simulations. We can do some cool things also with liquidity leveraging because ZOR is an ecosystem token. So through governance, we can create new applications that can mint ZOR. So the idea is that in the future we'll use liquidity that's locked in liquidity pools as collateral to mint new ZOR, and then that gives you instant liquidity. Like if you need to buy a pizza and you don't want to remove liquidity, you can just take out a loan against your liquidity pool. It's basically how it works. Yeah, I think also another thing, using PSwap tokens as a reward instead of just giving liquidity providers a larger share of their liquidity pools, it gives you a different asset that has a different risk profile. So it reduces correlated risk. So if you provide, let's say ZOR ETH, and both ZOR and ETH, go up in value or they go down in value, like you're exposed to these, the fluctuations in these assets. But if you are rewarded in PSwap tokens, it's a different asset, and so it does change the risk profile in a positive way, I would think. And I talked about the token bonding curve, and we have a cool team. So let's show a demo. So let's see. I'm trying to think if I want to to demo this on the dev stand or the test network. Give me a second here, and I will prepare the environment. I don't want to give away all my things here. So I'm going to live a little risky and show off the dev environment because it has some cool features, but it may not work because I don't know if it's being updated or not behind the scenes, because it can be updated at any time because it's a dev environment. Anyway, let's go to the account screen. So these are my assets. These are all fake. This is a test account I created just for testing. Don't steal my tokens. So I've got different tokens. You can actually anyone can create their own token. Here, maybe create like a Sydney coin. Sydney coin. Maybe, I don't know, 1337. So you can create your own token. It creates, no, I can't type at all. Okay, so I'm creating my own token right now, transaction submitted, and I should see it come soon. It takes about 6 seconds. I don't know if I have to add it or not. Yeah, people having fun with the names on this test environment, I see. Oh, gee, I've got lots of tokens here. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's like a side coin. Yeah, anyway, where was the Sydney coins? Yeah, I mean, it is a test environment, so it is possible that, but it looks like it's registered. Here, I'll go back. Let's search for Sid. There we are. So you have to add it. Okay. So I should have some Sydney coins there at the bottom. See? So let's create a liquidity pool for this coin. So go here, type in Sydney. I'm gonna put like 10, I'll put 110 as the initial price. So when you provide liquidity, you have to provide liquidity on both sides of the price point. And if you're creating a pair, you decide what the exchange rate is. So you could even have like Sydney coin be really valuable, or you can have it be like really not valuable. Yeah, so you hit supply. And another thing, you have to always do it with respect to ZOR. So you can't do like Sydney coin in like Ethereum or something because it's Polkaswap and it's built on the SORA network, so everything has to be on ZOR. Here we go, ZOR Sid. And then once you have your token pool, you can actually trade them. So like let's say I want more Sydney coins. I don't know why, because I already have the pool, but let's hit swap and then sign my transaction. By the way, all the transactions are using this kind of ugly interface is Polkadot.js. So it's kind of like the MetaMask for the Polkadot ecosystem. And it's really great that they hire blind designers to provide work for them. Anyway, I'm joking. So you can also go between like PSwap and Sydney coins, because the routing goes through ZOR. So you don't have to go directly to ZOR. You can just type in like Sydney, you can do like 1.27 and then swap, and then you can do it. So it's pretty fast, pretty cheap. I don't know if you saw the transaction fee. The transaction fee is 0.0007 ZOR. I think that's final for the production network. This is very, very close to what we'll have in production, by the way. There's a couple bugs that are just being fixed, but once these are done and it passes QA, then we're going to launch. So really, really close. We also have a bridge. So that's one of the cool things about the bridge. Like I can move assets that are registered on the bridge from the SORA network to the Ethereum network. The testnet uses RinkB, by the way, and there's 2 ZORs. So the dev stand ZOR is this one. So I've got 11 ZOR now. And if I can move like 2.1337, so I can hit next and then hit confirm. And then it asks you first to sign the transaction on the SORA network. And once it's confirmed on the SORA network, then you'll be asked to submit the cryptographic proof into Ethereum. So you have to sign another transaction for the Ethereum network. So with Ethereum gas fees, it's not super cheap, but that's life. And I think when we can also deploy this to other EVM-based networks that are a little bit cheaper. So right now it's generating the cryptographic proof of my SORA network transaction. So it waits for grandpa finality, so after 3 blocks, and then just hit sign here, and then RinkB network is it's processing my transaction, and it should be about 10 seconds or so. Good old Ethereum. There we go. See, it's finalized now. So if I go down here, you should see it's actually 13.1337. Anyway, but it's okay. So it works. That's how the bridge works. You can do the opposite way. You can move, like, let's say some some val from Rinkeby to, I don't have any balance. Okay, I can move like ZOR from Ethereum to SORA Network, and it's just the opposite. You first sign the transaction on Ethereum, it gets finalized. Well, there's no finalization in Ethereum. It gets put into a block, and then you send this cryptographic proof on the SORA network, and it gets processed. One thing to note is that when you are when you're sending the transaction on the SORA network, it's going to take like 6-7 minutes because it's waiting for 30 blocks because Ethereum has probabilistic finality because of mining. So you can actually have some, uncled blocks or, some soft forks inside the network that would cause problems with the bridge. So you have to wait 30 blocks. And depending on network conditions, you might have to wait more. Gee, so that's a major functionality. I'll just say a couple other things. We've had a SORA farm game on the test network. Not test network, what am I saying? So on the on the current Ethereum-based network, we have a website, sora.farm, where people are farming PSwap tokens. They provide liquidity, and you get these little squares. Anyway, it's a very simple game, but we're hoping to extend this in the future for the production launch. So Fearless is a really sexy and awesome wallet for the Polkadot ecosystem. So in the Polkadot ecosystem, there's actually no native apps except for Fearless. So Fearless is the only native mobile app, which means that it's programmed in native Java or Kotlin for Android and Swift for iOS. The advantage of doing this is you do get much better performance, and you can really fine tune and optimize everything. So we're working on some cool features like staking, and in a few weeks, this will be available, and you can use it for managing your Polkadot and Kusama staking and reward payouts. If you use Polkadot.js now, it's kind of painful, right? Because if you click on like the payouts tab and you choose like 6 days or if it takes like a minute or two to load. And if you choose 18 days, your browser crashes because of too much memory. But in a Fearless wallet, it'll take like 1 or 2 seconds. So it's going to be amazing and really cool. So you can also purchase crypto in Fearless, and it's all open source. So feel free to check out the GitHub repositories and do whatever you want. And stay fearless. So sure, your brains are all full with different things. I'm happy to answer some questions now.
I was wondering, I'm probably going to be the only person in this room who misses the good old Ether Delta. But I was wondering, like, since sandwicher flash bots are a big issue for AMMs, is there going to be the possibility to do limit order on this?
Okay. Yeah, it's a very good question. So for limit orders and having like an order book, we would represent this as a different liquidity source, and it would be used in the order routing algorithm to provide basically to fill part of an order. This will be done in the future, but not anytime soon because it complicates things quite a lot. We prevent front running a little bit more than Ethereum because we have a flat transaction fee for all the types of transactions. So you can't get any validator preference by giving a higher fee. Obviously, if you're an evil validator, you could, and you had enough nodes on the network, maybe you could, in some situations, prioritize your own transactions and blocks. But that's really hard to do, actually. It's not really practical, I think. So front running is not as big an issue as you would have in Ethereum. But yeah, bots trading still an issue. I don't think there's any way to really get around that, and I'm not sure it's always a bad thing either, because you can kind of have more efficient markets if you do have arbitrage between many different exchanges.
I don't know. Thank you very much. Anyway, yeah, no rush to do it because Uniswap V3 is, they're not even mentioning that in their documentation for the V3. So I think it's not a popular decision to implement Uniswap.
Yeah, to me, like the really cool thing about V3, well, Uniswap V3 is really they kind of use a slightly different curve, right? So you can optimize the curve and the math that you're using to be a little bit more capital efficient. So we're looking at ways to do this in the future. Yeah, I mean, there's trade-offs for that, of course.
Another question I have is, so from a liquidity provider perspective, if I, so let's imagine a classic AMM like Sushi. Let's imagine a classic AMM like Sushi or Uniswap, OneInch. If I put my two assets, now, permanent loss notwithstanding, I would have exposure to asset one, dollar value, asset two, dollar value. And I'm going to be rewarded for taking these three risks. So a permanent loss, asset one dropping in US dollar value, asset two dropping in US dollar value. My understanding is that in Polkaswap, as a liquidity provider, I'm going to be rewarded not by an increase of my liquidity tokens, but with these SORA token. Do I understand correctly? Is that the case?
Yeah, when you provide liquidity, it always has to be with respect to XOR. So like, you know, token X versus XOR, token Y versus XOR. So it makes XOR hub token that all the other tokens are kind of connected to. If you're trading, you don't really have to do that. I mean, you can go from X to token Y, and behind the scenes, it will automatically route. There's lots of good reasons to do this. I talked about how it can help reduce IL or impermanent loss a little bit because SORA is a little bit more stable. It's not a stable coin, but it is kind of predictable, right? Forward guided.
The question is basically, with normal liquidity provision, I have three risks. So I have asset number one going down in US dollar value, asset number two going down in US dollar value, and impermanent loss. Now, with this, though, the reward that I get, differently from other AMMs, is not in the increase of my liquidity tokens, but in this XOR, which is being given to me. Now, if this XOR was a stable coin, I would say, well, fair enough, it's pretty much the same. But it's going to be a volatile asset. So am I not exposing myself to an extra layer of unpredictability as a liquidity provider? Yes. That's my question. You are. So yes, okay, fair enough.
I understand the question. So the to be clear, the liquidity providers are not getting XOR, they're getting PSwap tokens. And PSwap is a deflationary token. So what that means is the supply is going down over time, which means there's less tokens on the market over time, which means that from a long-term perspective, you would expect maybe some longer-term price increase, which would be one way to offset some of the IL. So that's the I think that's one of the key points that I think was maybe is easy to misunderstand. So XOR is the native network token, but the actual reward for the LPs, the liquidity providers, is in PSwap. So it's a different token. So the segregation of the different tokens allows you to kind of fine tune the tokenomics for the different use cases.
All right, thanks. So the answer is basically yes, but there's a deflationary component in the token, so we might not expect like big depreciation to disincentivize. Thanks, that's interesting. So the fees are gonna be 0.3, same as Uniswap, right?
Yeah, so it's pretty high fees, but that's I think that's the only way to incentivize liquidity providers. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, I've got some thoughts based on some notes I've been taking as you went through, and I think I'd like to address the question of the complexity of the SORA ecosystem and the monetary system and all the governance layers there's a huge education and learning curve for people to acclimatize and understand how to engage with this kind of system that you've designed. Do you have any thoughts about how where do you suggest people should begin their monetary theory and practical outcome learning journey?
Oh, geez. So I think, like most things, people don't really have to understand it to use it. I think it can just be kind of, the best things should be designed so well that people don't even have to know the mechanics. For people who are interested in the details, yeah, it's quite a journey. I mean, I was a computer scientist by training, and then I just through crypto, I started to question, like, what is money? And then from that kind of get into like different economic theories. And really it was, I mean, not just the work of Professor Werner, but also many economists before him that really were quite interesting. And Professor Werner's work resonated with me a lot because I moved to Japan and became a Japanese citizen. And it's really very deeply tied to the story of Japan because, Japan went from being devastated in the war to having nothing. And then at the peak, it was, almost the world's highest economy or biggest economy, even though it's a very small place, right? So when I moved to Japan, actually Japan was second largest economy, and then now it's third. But it's because of the way the money was created and allocated for production. So really, it was I think it was only Werner who really studied that and got down into the details. But obviously these theories are not that new. A lot of this work goes back quite a ways. So I like the work of Fisher. So he's the one who came up with the equation of exchange, which it's a very simple equality, but it generally holds up very well. And at the macro level, the work of Werner makes a lot of sense. If you go into the micro level, you get lost in many ways, which I think is maybe not the best. So to me, microeconomics is not as interesting as macroeconomics. So if you really want to study it, the short answer is, you should read probably Professor Werner's book, New Paradigm in Macroeconomics. It's more like a textbook, and it's very well cited and very interesting.
Yes,
and then
I was just wondering whether that was part of the journey you had in mind for people starting to use Fearless to begin with, where you'll have a link to any information about SORA more broadly, how it works, and then take people through a process of learning about the governance and the parliament and the committees, like let people choose a journey for themselves. Is that part of the
I think part of the hard thing is that a lot of this is not like the parliament and stuff is not operational yet. So it takes some time to get things ready. And I think once these are operational, it'll be much easier to understand. But people can already get involved. They can go to our Telegram chats, and we can put some memes there together. I don't know.
Sure. I remember joining your group about 2 or 3 years ago. I haven't been active for a long time, but I was excited early on with what you were doing when you were first working with Hyperledger and some of the things you were doing there. So kept an eye on it over time. We've got more questions. We've got a guest here with a question. So, yeah.
Okay. So he listens there. Oh, okay. I think they want to be able to hear the question too. I apologize if my question's not very technical, but I'd love to hear just a bit. It's sort of a three-parter that I think you can answer in one, which is kind of how did you get involved in this space with Polkadot in particular? What was that dating process like? How did you get involved in Uniswap? In Polkaswap to begin with. How do you see your moat in this space, specifically around being sushi? And then lastly, if we wanted to bootstrap ourselves to the success of you and your team out of the different tokens you talked about tonight, where should we really be looking? Is it SORA, is it PSwap, et cetera? Thank you so much.
Wow, there's a lot of things there. So I mean, so as far as how I got involved in all this stuff, I mean, it was January of 2013 that I got into crypto through like Bitcoin, and that was really just like the beginning of a journey, really. So that was a journey that went through many phases. I did, was involved in other altcoin projects. I founded SORA Network 5 years ago, so we're celebrating our 5th year now. And we've done quite a lot of things. So we built, the payment system for Central Bank of Cambodia using Hyperledger Iroha, which we also built. And so we've done a lot. And we keep building and developing our own technology quite a lot as well. For economics, it was really, kind of Bitcoin and crypto in general really made me question a lot about money and what it is. And through that, I kind of came across many different theories of economics, some of which I think are, economics is really frustrating because it's almost like religions, right? So there's many different ideas and everyone thinks they're right. And they're all right in different ways, right? And that's kind of the frustrating thing. But yeah, it's so you have to figure out, take your own bits and pieces that lift you up and that can improve you, just like with religions, actually. So it's kind of money is really weird thing, and we don't learn about it in school, or no one really explains what it is or how it came to be, or anything. So it's a little bit frustrating from that sense. So you really do have to go on a personal journey and figure that out. And that's, taken me from when I started this, since 2013 until now, and it's always moving on. My company, we do a lot of technology provision and talking, well, Polkadot, so the journey, I don't know. I first met Gavin Wood back in 2014 when he came to Japan. We actually met in Kyoto after he came down from Tokyo, and he gave a talk about Ethereum at the time. And then a few years later, he left Ethereum, and then I heard he's working on Polkadot, and so I was able to kind of find out more about what he was working on. And it's a very interesting ecosystem. I think it's the cool thing is that it kind of goes along with my philosophy in that it kind of goes against blockchain maximalism. So the idea that you can have many different systems coexisting, you don't have to just have one true blockchain. And so everyone can be their own king, have their own kingdom, but you can interoperate. And that's really one of the really amazing and cool things about Polkadot. And sure, that already exists in things like Cosmos, but let's not kid ourselves. Polkadot has really taken the technology a lot farther. Parity Substrate is a really powerful platform for building blockchains, and this didn't exist before. So now suddenly we have really great tools and technology to build new things. So through this journey, talking to the community, there's like an obvious need for like a DEX, and Polkaswap is kind of like the analog of Uniswap on Ethereum. And so it's kind of a place where everyone can kind of come together and trade their assets. And parachains are still, being developed, but they're really, really close. And I think it's going to be some of the features of parachains, like Spree, should make it very nice to do like direct swaps even across different parachains. And so that's going to be really, really exciting. But there's always new things. Obviously, it's not just us contributing. It's there's a whole ecosystem. There's people like you here in Sydney who are, studying about what we're doing and helping to learn more and to teach others. And yeah, we're hoping other people can contribute more to the source code and to help out, and anyone is allowed to kind of be a part of this. So yeah, please don't be shy, please get involved. You can run a node. If you run a node and you have high availability, you can get people to nominate you and you can get rewards in Val tokens. So there's lots of really good incentives. Now, how do we build up this ecosystem, I think is what you asked. And because there's all these different tokens, all this stuff. I'll tell you what I see as a structural need. And that's really right at launch, we need to have really good collateral of the token bonding curve. So what that means is we need people to be willing to part with their ETH and their DAI to collateralize the token bonding curve so that the ecosystem has some value basis. Because without that, it's not going to break anything, but it's going to take a lot longer to bootstrap the value basis of SORA. And I think the whole ecosystem kind of rides on that. Yeah, that's some of my thoughts. I guess the rest you can try to study more about the ecosystem and maybe come to different conclusions.
Thank you very much. Any more questions, Bradley?
Yeah,
Just
just
probably the last question.
probably
because-
one or two more quickly. You don't have to answer this, but you mentioned other EVMs, potentially other bridges. Are there any that you've got that people should keep an eye out for, like NEAR or BSC or Solana? And is Solana a friend or a foe or a frenemy? Or
Yeah, these are good questions. So yeah, I mean, we're focused mainly on other large EVM-based blockchains. I think any EVM-based blockchain we want to support. So in the future, we can support all of them. It'll just take a little bit longer. For Kusama and for Polkadot, there's no parachains yet. So we're working on bridges directly to these relay chains so that we can move our tokens, Kusama and DOT tokens to our network. I'm a little bit frustrated that we don't have this at launch, but if anyone wants to help contribute to this, it would be very happy. As far as Solano, I'm familiar, of course, with the ecosystem, and I think it just takes time to build bridges because each one has to be tested. I think we're going to focus more on EVM-based projects that are close to like the Polkadot ecosystem, and of course BSC because we're working with Tau protocol.
okay, that's good to know. And in terms of developers and interest, like into support for developers, SDKs, or is there any smart contract language or different from Solidity, or what's the possibilities for developers to start to look at what you're doing and build on top of the ecosystem?
Yeah, so the way you build on top of SORA Network is in a few months probably we'll support Parity Inc., which is a smart contract language. It's a DSL in Rust.
Okay.
We won't support Solidity. Solidity is rubbish. But in the short term, if you really wanted to program something today, the way you would do this is using a substrate palette. So you create like a palette, and then this has to be deployed. This has to be deployed as a runtime upgrade. So you would create the palette. You would make a pull request. The community would review it. You would make a proposal for the runtime upgrade, and the SORA council, which is a council of 13 members, that'll vote. So this is very similar to the Kusama Polkadot councils. This is just to bootstrap the ecosystem. In the future, this will be replaced by the SORA Parliament. So it's not very friendly, but it'll get easier. I mean, it's a new ecosystem. It's going to take years to develop.
Yeah, and Clarity would be the other one I'd be interested in. If there's anyone working to look at Clarity support.
You mean Parity Inc.?
Clarity.
Oh, Clarity. What's Clarity?
Oh, it's another smart contract language that's probably worth a look, actually.
You mean in Substrate or?
No, it's available for Blockstack and also for conversion to Solidity, but it's actually a much cleaner smart contract language. So.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think I kind of like Parity Inc. It's kind of like more special. It's more specialized for this ecosystem, but it's much easier to write correct code than in Solidity.
Yeah. Well, that's it from me. Unless there's one final audience question, I think we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, we're good. And well, thank you very much for your time. We overdue a little bit. I mean, appreciating your time. And we're extremely thankful for your time and your excellent presentation. And yeah, thank you everyone.
More than 40 of us here tonight enjoyed that very much.